Paratrooper Ben Parkinson is one of Britain's most wounded soldiers. Blown up in Afghanistan, his injuries were so severe he was brought home to die.
When they started to take him off the sedation, there was just nothing there at all.
Brain injured and with both legs amputated, Ben's family were told he'd never walk or talk again.
Keep that back straight, come on, push!
But Ben Parkinson is a fighter, and he began the long road to recovery that's seen him push back the boundaries of what wounded soldiers can achieve and become an inspiration to millions of others. And his journey has brought him here to the great Canadian wilderness, where he faces one of his biggest challenges yet. He'll be paddling hundreds of miles down the mighty Yukon River, a daunting mass of fast-flowing water. For Ben, it'll be much more than a trek into the unknown. He'll be battling with his damaged and broken body.
There's his pillow. Need that in.
Lance Bombardier Ben Parkinson is packing for a journey few imagined he would ever be able to take.
You're very patriotic hat. Yeah.
Now.
Well, that's to keep you warm at night. You're going to put that on now? Right, all right then. But don't forget it.
In 2006, his battlefield injuries had left him in a desperate state. Now Ben and his stepdad Andy Durney are heading for the Yukon, gold rush country in northwest Canada. Andy won't just be Ben's carer on the trip, he'll also be his cook and right-hand man.
Right, there's the full washing kit.
We're done there, Dad.
Got him in.
Ben and Andy are part of a team put together by the Forces charity Pilgrim Bandits. They believe in pushing injured service personnel to their physical and mental limits, recreating the challenges that soldiers face when they were in the military. The Yukon will be a big test for this lad from Doncaster. Not only are there bears and wolves, there's 250 miles of canoeing and a week of wild camping. For a guy with no legs, it's going to be a tough expedition. I'll be joining Ben on the trip. Meeting him, it's clear what he's had to overcome.
Who are these people?
The brain injury has affected his speech, and there are huge gaps in his memory.
So Ben, I understand your nickname was the Big Unit.
Apparently.
And you look a big unit there.
That was many years ago, that one. That was when I was 16 at Harrogate College.
I have to say, it's one guy talking to another, but you're quite a handsome boy.
That one.
What about this one? Any ideas?
My room in Colchester, O'Connor, and all this, I don't know, Johnny.
Do you find it frustrating that you've got lots of your memory that's missing?
Yeah, very. Also, my speech, because people easily imagine you're mentally ill and take us a break when you can't talk.
That's Afghan, is it?
Yeah. Because
But you can't remember this?
nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing at all.
Before or after or nothing?
Nothing. I can't remember for years and years before either. But I still remember it's starting to come back slowly.
A brilliant set of photos. You know, just looking at these and talking to your mum and Andy, you've made such massive progress since the incident. Have you any hopes and aspirations moving forward?
I want to walk without crutches on my own, and I want to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
I have no doubt this gentleman will float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. But once you've conquered the Yukon...
And that I don't know what's going to be harder, the Yukon or the fighting.
Ben's certainly not without ambition. His Yukon adventure is just the latest in a long list of epic challenges. He's already skied across the Norwegian Arctic, and he still has the beating heart of a paratrooper inside him. He's completed an astonishing 23 jumps since he was injured. Ben's now a poster boy for wounded soldiers. In 2012, he carried the Olympic torch through his hometown. 12 months later, the big unit got the big call to go to the palace to receive an MBE. But the Yukon is a whole new ball game. And while most people are taking it easy on a Friday night, Ben's in a warehouse in the south of England, getting the lowdown on what he'll need.
So that, your tent, your DOS roll, your thermals, ex-lads should have all their own.
The expedition is being led by a group of crack ex-servicemen known as the Pilgrim Bandits. They've served Queen and country all over the globe. Now they're putting their military skills to use, pushing injured soldiers and civvies like me to their absolute limits.
We're hoping to be on the water between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. There's always one, isn't there? Yes.
Ben's not the only injured soldier on the trip. There are other double amputees who were wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're all being warned that we're heading out of our comfort zones.
This is a solar charger, I believe, and it's everyone's recommending that we take one, you know, to charge your phones up and that sort of thing. There'll be no signal for phones, but you can take pictures and all that sort of stuff.
There's a lot to learn, and fast, but I want to understand what makes Ben Parkinson tick. Just why is he so driven, and whether this incredible man has any limits. Morning, Ben. You're looking the part.
Great.
Well, I can see there's a little thumb sticking out the top. How are you, mate? Sleep all right?
Amazing.
There's your boat. What do you think? Poole Harbour in Dorset isn't exactly frontier land, but after almost a year of preparation, it's the last training exercise before we head for Canada. Here we go. Ben's off already. There's no stopping him. Look at him. Glyn at the back is hardly paddling. It's the open sea rather than a river, but at least we can fine-tune our technique.
Right, brilliant. So as you're paddling along, Ben, we're going to try and imagine you've got a punch ball in front of your face, and we're going to try and punch it with your top hand. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's it like that. So it gets your paddle upright. Yeah, that's good. Not always knocking him out there.
Do you think he's going to have any specific problems with this kind of the duration of it all?
Yeah, I think so. The repetitive nature of it, because obviously it will become fatiguing. So we're looking at probably between 45 and 55 miles a day. So, I mean, so far today we've probably done about 4. I mean, how are you feeling?
Quite tired.
Yeah. I mean, it does become quite tiring, the repetitive nature of it. But it's just the ability for him just to carry on. So just to get used to getting in that zone and waking up and going and paddling and paddling and paddling. He's so powerful, but he just compensates and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. So
right.
He's we just sort of, a bit like a Duracell bunny, sort of wind him up and off he goes. So. The power transfer goes through your body, through your feet.
Yeah.
So it's a full body workout, really.
Yeah. How you doing, Ben? Good man. Paddling isn't straightforward for Ben. It's not just that he's an amputee, his back is broken. To make him more comfortable, he's been training in an open Canadian canoe. It's constant energy-sapping exercise, but it seems Ben has a competitive streak. Ben, thoughts so far, how's it going?
Very annoying. Very annoying.
Oh, very enjoyable, very annoying.
Annoying.
Why?
Because I was drawing like hell. Really annoying. And people were coming past me. One and another.
You're joking.
I should have gone. I was really knew me.
Every time I look at you, all I can see is just a pair of shoulders and paddle working.
Well, I did it for choice because everyone else, you can pass them. They're both a lot faster than this.
You're doing pretty well. Every time I look up, you're in the front. Thankfully, the Yukon expedition will be a marathon rather than a sprint. It'll be tough, but if the weather's bad, it could be punishing.
When we were there doing the recce, we had freezing fog and freezing weather for a couple of nights, and it was cold. you know, minus 12, I think it was. But other than that, it's just a fast-flowing river. If we get any problems, you can't turn around. The river's just too quick.
The Yukon will be a test of all our abilities, and Ben is up for the challenge.
Nice one, chaps.
I think he still thinks he's got something to prove, and I really don't think that anybody thinks he has got anything to prove. But Ben just cracks on with everything. He's not one for sitting around and watching TV. He doesn't do much Facebook. He wants to do the expeds and get there. And he's a power at the end of the day, and failure isn't an option.
There you go, I've got you, Ben.
So as we set off for the Yukon, there must be something Ben's worried about.
If I was to talk about a bear, that might be a problem. It might not. They might cover you because they want me than you.
My travels normally focus on wildlife, so I wouldn't mind an encounter with a bear or two. I'm not sure everyone else would be so keen.
It seems Ben's beat us to it. It's just down here. So he's feeling this morning. Ready for the off. Get your hair cut nice and short for it. I've got no choice.
Yeah.
Morning, Andy. How's everything going?
All right, yeah. First year. Can't argue with that.
The trip is a logistical headache for Ben and Andy. As well as the camping gear, there's all the other medical equipment too. If anything's forgotten, well, the Yukon's a long way from Yorkshire.
Because he's got the legs and everything, but you've got to make sure he's got all the stuff for putting the legs on and off, and I'm always panicking that I've forgotten something, because one little bit, and that means he can't put them on very well.
It's more than 4,000 miles as the crow flies from the UK to the Yukon. It takes 2 flights to reach its capital, Whitehorse. But from the air, we can understand the kind of terrain that awaits us. This is a land of vast open spaces. No wonder this is the wilderness centre of Canada. Let the adventure begin. We're planning to join the Yukon River a few hours' drive north of Whitehorse at the small community of Carmacks. If all goes well, 8 days later, we'll reach the former Klondike Gold Rush Centre of Dawson City. That's the idea. But the realities are daunting. At 2,000 miles long, the Yukon is a giant of a river. Yukon Territory is also massive. It's twice the size of Britain. Just 35,000 people live here. There are more moose than humans. The river flows like a superhighway. Fed by glacial meltwater, it's both freezing and its speed deadly. We'll all have to be on top of our game.
One of the problems when you're on it is because it's like being on a conveyor belt, you just sort of can be a bit blasé about the fact that it's moving really quickly. But in actual fact, you just need to be aware all the time. Never switch off. Assume everything's trying to kill you, you'll be fine.
Well, it's the first kayaking day. Everyone's suitably refreshed after their first night under canvas. And it's pretty cold at the moment. We're having our first meeting, everyone getting familiar with who they're going to be kayaking with. I think we're all feeling the same. We want to get on the water and get paddling, but the devil is in the detail. There's so much to sort out before we start to float.
You keep yourself dry, you keep yourself warm. Religiously look after your sleeping bag and your clothes to make sure that they are permanently dry. As soon as they get wet, we really struggle to dry them.
Most of us are using enclosed kayaks, but because of Ben's back problems, his open Canadian canoe needs a bit of tweaking.
These are sort of standard canoes, and because we've got them from the outfitters here in Canada, they're very different to the setup that we've had for Ben when we've been training over in the UK. So the difficulty is we're having to sort of be a little bit Heath Robinson with the way that we set it up.
Well, obviously, without legs, stability is a massive issue.
Oh,
these bags are there just to wedge him in?
Yeah, almost, yeah. So it's designed that he can press against it. So when he puts the paddle in, he's able to drive through his stumps, if you like, and it pushes the boat forward. So he's able to transfer the power through his body and then transfer it through the legs and drive the boat forwards. He's a real unit. He's strong and powerful, and therefore he's able to power the boat. Ned at the back will essentially be just trying to keep it in a straight line and steering, and the power's up front.
I think for many able-bodied people, they're worried about the physical aspect of the kayaking, and everything else
is much easier. For you, it's the other way around. I think you'll be great in the kayak, but struggle elsewhere.
I think so as well. I've been very embarrassed, really, because obviously I can't fall on that. And now, because my back is broken, so I can't walk yet.
Is it tough to have everyone do everything for you?
No, really, no.
This is like rehab for Ben. He's used to walking on level ground. If he can get walking better on all these lumps and bumps, that's got to be brilliant, because when he gets back on the level ground, he'll be away. I won't be able to keep up with him.
The expedition comes at a poignant time for Ben and his family. It's 9 years to the very day since he was severely wounded in Afghanistan.
We normally make quite a big thing of it.
Yeah.
We call it Ben's survival day. We don't call it when he the day when he got injured, the day when he survived. And every year, apart from the first one when you weren't well enough, we've had some kind of party.
Well, happy survival day, Ben.
Cheers.
Let's hope we survive
Congratulations.
the rest of the week.
And we'll see you on the water. Survival could be a big thing today, because there's one major obstacle to overcome: a treacherous stretch of water called Five Finger Rapids. And it's so cool because there are 5 ways you can go down, and believe me, 4 of those ways you do not want to take your kayak down, because there's a lot of white water, rocks, lateral water trying to flip the boat. So it's crucial we hit the one way that is safe to go down. For inexperienced kayakers like me, and obviously Ben with his physical challenges, that's going to be tough. If we get down there, we're going to enjoy our dinner. My first stroke. Fabulous. See you later. With no home comforts for the next 8 days, Ben will have little option on this expedition but to go with the flow. It's my first hour on the water, and I have to say I'm loving it, but if there's one person that's enjoying it more than me, it's that chap over there, Ben. He may have no legs, but he is a powerhouse. Ever since his accident 9 years ago, he's just spent the time in the gym, bulking up. He's got massive biceps, huge shoulders. The man was basically born to kayak. We're following a well-travelled route to Dawson City. Towards the end of the 19th century, the Yukon River was the quickest way to get to the Klondike goldfields. Thousands paid a small fortune to go by water, braving the river with all its natural hazards. Many more took their chances by trekking over the mountains. Whichever way they went, it was no easy journey, and one often made in vain. Few ever found the riches they were looking for. The river hasn't changed much, and neither have the Five Finger Rapids. With confined cliff faces and swift running water, this spot has the potential to cause a whole heap of trouble. One mistake and our boats could be tipped over. That would be bad for any of us, but especially if it happened to Ben. The current is moving so quickly here that if Ben goes overboard, we'll have a job on our hands to get to him in time. It's a tense few minutes, but the rest of us make it through. Well, that was fun. Water splashing over the front of the boat, and any minute Ben's about to appear around the corner, and there's going to be a different proposition for him because he's in an open kayak, so it might just fill with water. Let's see how he gets on. Nine years ago in Afghanistan, Ben's life was hanging by a thread. Now he's careering down the Yukon River. What a way to celebrate your survival day.
When we first met Ben, I mean, he was in an electric wheelchair, you know, going up and down. Could virtually hardly talk. No, he just looked a real sad bloke. But you could see Ben's a kind of special guy. You could see somewhere in there that there was still something wanting to get out and able to get out, and it just needed it just needed the nut cracking, really, and that's all we've done.
The Pilgrim Bandits say they're not here to provide sympathy for severely wounded soldiers, but to help restore their confidence and self-belief. Former Royal Marine Vinnie Manley lost his legs 9 years ago, working as a private military contractor for the Americans in Iraq.
It's kind of calculated risk. You know you're on the front line. In my mind, it was no different from being in the Marines. You do what you love and you take your chance.
Like many other wounded veterans, recovery hasn't been easy.
They kind of show you that if you're prepared to put 100% effort in, then life can go back to almost as good as what it was. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways of doing things as an amputee, but, you know, I'm here, I'm in the Yukon. It's awesome.
Tyler Christopher was just 25 when he lost both his legs after stepping on a mine whilst on patrol with the Rifles Regiment in Afghanistan.
I was lying face down and it just felt like warm water pouring down my legs. I was trying to get up and it just weren't working. I was lying on my left arm and so my right arm was out and right arm weren't working.
It was a life-defining moment, but since then, Tyler has refused to let his injuries limit him, and he now plays sport for his country.
I was always an outdoors person. I thought, right, that's all that bit over. I ain't going to be able to do any of that again. So that's the good thing about this, because I never thought I'd come out camping in the middle of nowhere again.
For the charity that's brought these boys to the Yukon, there's a bigger issue at play. They say society's attitude to veterans needs to change.
The thing I've always found striking is whenever we as a charity go to America and we do things in America, you'll be walking down a broad walk with some of the lads and cars will come past, they will stop, wind down the window and say, "Thank you very much, sir." That would never ever happen in the United Kingdom. Never. And I think that's the saddest thing about the country I represent.
Even as a youngster, Ben Parkinson only had one dream.
He was 4 when he first mentioned going in the army. There was never anything any different for Ben. There was not the normal fireman, astronaut, none of that. Ben wanted to go in the army. And it was quite strange because we've got no military history in the family since the Second World War, but Ben wanted to go in the army.
His heart was set on joining one of the Army's elite units, and more than 6'4", this was someone who could more than look after himself.
Ireland was over, basically. Things had quietened down in Ireland. And it was before the problems in the Middle East. There'd been the first Gulf War, but things were fairly quiet. But we did try and say to him, you know, this could go wrong. And he, the usual sort of, well, I'll not be bothered, will I, if I'm dead? Typical young lad's thing. And we sort of said, no, Ben, there are a lot worse things than being dead. And that haunts me somewhat, that was a conversation that we did have.
We did have that.
He eventually joined 7th Para, providing artillery support for the parachute regiment. Aged 18, he was in one of the first British units sent into Iraq during the Second Gulf War. 4 years later, he was in Afghanistan.
He rang up the day before and said that he didn't think he'd be going out on any more manoeuvres and he'd just be in Camp Bastion getting ready to come home. And
his actual words were, I'm back in Bastion, I'm just cleaning the guns waiting for the Marines and I'll be home in 10 days. And that was on Monday. And then on Tuesday, Tuesday was when it happened.
Ben was the gunner in a Land Rover which hit an old Soviet landmine whilst on patrol in Helmand province. 2 of the soldiers in the vehicle were wounded. Ben's injuries were catastrophic.
We'd come home from work, it was 6 o'clock in the evening, there was a knock on the door and I went to answer the door and through the glass I could see a guy in green and I wouldn't answer the door, I just started screaming.
We'd been told that if 2 people came to the door, your son or daughter had been killed. And when I was walking out, I obviously knew with bad news, but because there was only one there, I thought, he's been injured. We'd just been watching the news thinking, he's nearly back, he'll be back in a few days.
Ben's injuries were believed to be unsurvivable. His pelvis was fractured in 2 places, and all but 2 fingers were broken. He had an open fracture of his left arm, as well as fractures of the vertebrae in his back. Every rib had been damaged. His jaw was also fractured, as were his cheekbones, and there were further fractures to his skull. In the military hospital at Camp Bastion, his legs were amputated. His shattered body was then brought home to the UK, so he could die near those who loved him most.
I walked up to him, but he was Ben, and the only bit of him that I could touch was actually that arm was on his right arm, it was about from there to there, and there were drips and bottles and tubes and drains, and I just walked up to him and I just smiled and laughed and I said, "What on earth have you been doing?" And I just sat down with him and just kept stroking his arm.
Ben would remain in a coma for 3 months. His war was over, but a host of other battles were only just beginning. Given the extent of Ben's injuries, it's a miracle he's made it to the Yukon. This is a gruelling expedition, and as we head further north, the temperature is dropping. Life on the river is becoming more demanding.
Mega. Please lay off the pies, Ben.
So far we've covered 80 miles, but the adventure for Ben and his fellow amputees is entering a new phase.
The last few days of kayaking, the Yukon River has flown north, parallel to the Klondike Highway. But all of a sudden, it's now going to change, because the Klondike Highway will disappear off this way, ultimately ending in Alaska. And we're going this way, off-grid. This is total Canadian wilderness, which is really exciting because we'll be miles from anywhere. But if there's a problem, it's going to be difficult to reach us.
As Ben spends more time in the canoe, his technique is constantly improving.
Good balance, good power, apparently. You enjoying it?
But Ben's fighting spirit is hiding a problem. It was initially thought the open canoe would let him exploit his powerful upper body strength. His upright position, though, isn't fully supported, and a combination of the headwinds and the repetitive action of paddling is playing havoc with his broken back.
It's been our shortest day on the water, but by far our toughest. The weather looks lovely now, but on the way down it was really cold and really windy. And on top of that, Ben was having problems with his back, and we kept having to stop. But because he's at head of the flotilla, we all have to wait. So Glenn made the decision, because people were getting cold with the constant stoppage, that some would go ahead and some would stay with Ben to support him. So we finally arrived. Everyone's exhausted, and then we had to haul all the kayaks up from the water 15 metres below, up a slope like that. And believe me, they're heavy. Tough day. Quite a short day on the water, but a tough day for you, mate.
It was, because my back is in a bit of a bad way still. And so I experienced a bit of pain from it. But hopefully I did now.
So if pain 1 to 10, where was it on the scale?
8. It was maybe not that high, but very high. It was very painful.
You told me a phrase about pain and recently.
Pain is merely weakness leaving the body. But in this case, it's not leaving the body. It's lingering around, standing there near me, laughing at me. It won't go.
the ergonomics of where he's sat in the boat and how he's able to hold the paddles, he's finding himself slumping further and further forward. So a couple of us are going to have a quick look at the boat. We're going to try and engage it a little bit. We're changing the paddles he's going to use tomorrow, so we're going to try and engage it that way around. But the key thing really is he's doubled his mileages. The biggest training weekend we did was 42 miles on the River Wye over 2 days. We're currently at 89 miles, so over 3 days. So he's significantly increasing the effort he's having to put in to be able to achieve the mileages that we need to do. Tomorrow we've got a 40-mile day planned, so we're trying to make sure he's got enough creams and make sure he's massaged in the right ways to ensure that he's able to continue, hopefully, in the right vein tomorrow.
We clean them up best we can, obviously we normally wash them fairly well.
And it's not just the daily wear and tear on Ben's body that's a worry. Keeping his legs clean is a top priority.
And the idea is just slip them on, give them a shove, and then when Ben puts his weight on, it just simply drives the air through this one-way valve, and then they stick onto the silicone fins.
It's the first time in 3 days that Ben's been reunited with his prosthetic legs, and it comes as a blessed relief.
It feels like I'm a human again.
Oh, that's one way of putting it, isn't it?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to be like, you're not like, you want to feel like a real person, would you?
Ben's frustrations are understandable, but while he takes it easy, I'm exploring our camp spot. Fort Selkirk would have been buzzing during the gold rush, and although it's quiet now, it seems we're not the only visitors. So far, all the chat about brown bears has been hypothetical, because we haven't actually seen one yet. We've just found these footprints right the way along this track, and I know these are brown bear because you have a look, there's a massive pad at the back showing a really broad foot, and you can clearly see all the claw marks. That's because, unlike cats, bears can't retract their claws, so they come out really clearly, and I think that's the hind left foot. And if we walk along, that's its back left, that's its back right, that's its front right, and that is its front left. And casting a glance back, I reckon that's a bear with a gait of about 2.5 metres. And the hilarious thing is, we're camping just 50 metres in that direction. Yikes. While the bears keep their distance, Ben's thoughts are never far from home. And using a satellite phone, he checks in with his mum, Diane.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, Ben. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Are you enjoying it?
I'm loving it.
Go on, there's something everybody wants to know. Have you seen any bears?
No, I wrestled one.
You've wrestled one, great. What about the Northern Lights?
I've been asleep, so I never saw it, but everyone else saw it, and it was incredible, apparently.
How's the camping?
Very cold, yeah.
But could you sleep?
Yeah, like a baby.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Well, you be careful. We'll see you when you get back.
See ya.
This is what Ben wanted. This is the life that Ben would want. And that's our job, to get him the life that he wants. He's off doing what he wants to do.
Is your mum missing you, or is she glad to be shut of you?
I don't know, she said she missed me, but like I said, she might lie to me.
Are you missing her?
Yeah, massively. I wish she was here.
She's really proud of you.
Yeah.
Diane and Andy have sacrificed everything to get Ben where he is today. But back in 2006, they faced the fact that the little boy who'd wanted to join the army was now a 22-year-old soldier fighting for his life.
We did have prognosis that he would never really know anyone, and he'd probably only...
They said he'd had a stroke. I can remember one day I broke down and I was sobbing because I wanted to see his eyes, and that's all I could think. I kept saying, I just want to see his eyes. And when they started to take him off the sedation, there was just nothing there at all.
After many dark months, Ben did the unthinkable. He started communicating by blinking. But as hopes rose, tension started to develop.
On top of Ben's injuries, there is this horrendous situation where half of the family were saying, look, Ben's gone, let it go, let's grieve and get on with it. And us were saying, he's not dead.
Ben's brain injury remained a worry. He was transferred to another NHS unit, the Putney Hospital for Neurodisability in London, but the strain was taking its toll.
Ben was in a ward of 6 people, and there were people screaming, help me, all the time, and moaning, and for the sake of the patients and the sake of the family, I cannot tell you what it was like at Putney. But I was convinced that Ben would not want to be alive in those circumstances, and I actually thought about ending it for both of us.
Diane was struggling to cope as Ben's situation reached a real low. He was eventually moved to Headley Court in Surrey, where most of Britain's severely war-injured were being rehabilitated. Ben was back amongst his fellow soldiers, but there'd be more setbacks.
The relationship at Headley Court broke down somewhat in that they were very much starting to take the attitude, Ben is now a finished product. His back was still broken, he couldn't walk, he was in an electric wheelchair, his left arm was useless, he had very severe ataxia, he shook all the time, didn't speak, and they were saying, you know, that's it.
Ben's recovery, though, was far from over. Much of the focus up to this point had been on his brain injury. But 2.5 years after the explosion, surgeons attempted to fix Ben's back.
They operated on his back on his birthday, on the 31st of March. On the same day, Headley Court discharged him and said they wouldn't take him back for his rehabilitation. And on the same day, he came out of the operating theatre. He'd grown 6 inches in the operating theatre. And he spoke his first word as he recovered from the anaesthetic, because he was straight, his lungs could expand, and he started to speak. Not, I don't mean speak as in you and I, but he started trying to vocalise as he came out of the anaesthetic.
And what was that first word?
Balloon.
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 I'm just saying, I'm trying to think what it was.
Balloon.
How was Ben kind of mentally throughout this? Was he down,
Strong.
up, or was he always positive?
He was never down, never. He was always positive, and the doctors used to dismiss that as the brain injury. Oh, well, that's because he didn't realise how bad he is. It was rubbish, absolute rubbish. He was determined, and the determination we caught from him.
Diane and Andy's determination has been relentless. They continue to battle with the Ministry of Defence over Ben's compensation. Back in 2009, they realised that if Ben was going to reach his full potential, they'd have to adopt the role of full-time carers. And their home would have to become his rehab centre.
Where do you see yourself going in the future?
Stay in the Army. Stay in the Army.
Due to his brain injury, communication was a slow process.
Where do you get your confidence from? You must have an enormous amount of self-belief to go through this.
I always had it.
Physically, he was in a bad place. Few gave him any chance of walking again. But Ben and his family refused to give up.
Come on, you let him up, don't let him up. Finish him off.
Overweight and out of shape, he threw himself into a tough physical and mental regime.
2, 3, 4.
Through sheer persistence and often bloody-mindedness, Ben wanted to prove the doubters wrong. These small physical steps were part of a major leap forward. But for Ben, there was still a long way to go. Back in Canada, Ben is 4 days into his 250-mile expedition, but he's been struggling.
Morning, Ben.
Hello.
Paddling in the Canadian canoe has aggravated his back injury, but the Pilgrim Bandits think they've found a solution.
Change of plan today. In order to try and help Ben's back, he's going to go in my kayak, I'm going to go in his canoe. Because the idea is, if he's just low in the water, he should be able to get his paddling much easier and hopefully power forward.
The outcome is uncertain. Ben's still in discomfort.
You're
actually going to release it away? What's it called? It's already called.
But I'll be looking through it properly. I'll cry when you look on the off camera. So the more I'm hard. Well, when you land it, I'll cry. Probably.
It's a new experience. I think someone's showing me the ropes behind.
There's more than 150 miles to go before we reach our final destination. Changing the boats round was an inspired idea, but I'm quickly realising I'm just not as fit as Ben.
Well, we've gone from the front of the group to the back because this Canadian canoe requires probably 30% more effort. But the sun's shining. It looks like Ben's doing really well. He's right at the head again, which is great to see.
When I eventually catch up, there's one question on my mind.
How's your back?
Well, I feel sorry for you because I had to close my back and now you're in it.
Ben's obviously feeling a lot better. With Ben back in the groove, I'm appreciating the Yukon in its full natural glory. One thing's for sure, this place isn't short of trees. There are thousands of square miles of spruce, complemented by the changing colour of the aspen. And where there are trees, you'll find one elusive animal.
Just behind me, beaver have basically been felling these huge aspens. They've got the most incredible teeth that grow throughout the lifetime of the animal. They're impregnated with iron, and they use them like chisels to fell these trees to create their beaver lodge. They're like habitat engineers. And I think we've got here beavers that are just starting off a new home.
The Yukon is a dream location for wildlife. There are more bald eagles here than you can shake a stick at. But they're not the only predator hanging out by the river.
Can you hear that? Okay, we haven't seen bears yet, but I'm listening to a top carnivore. That is the call of the wild. Somewhere on the other side of the Yukon River over there is a wolf pack howling. That's thrilling.
Despite the noise from the locals, we all have no trouble getting to sleep.
Ben, did you hear the wolves as we went to bed last night?
I did. I was asleep, but I heard them before you went to bed yet.
Nice sound, eh? Sound of the wilderness.
Yeah, very good. But it's just too far away. Now that one's really closer for obvious reasons, but I wish I could see them in the distance, so.
Are you missing anything? Are you missing food or friends or family or company?
Food, obviously. And my mum, but food mainly.
So food first and your mother second?
But mum makes the food, so that can be important, really.
They come together?
Yeah.
Watch the focus there. Keep the shoulders back. Good man.
Home life in Doncaster has played a massive part in Ben's turnaround. Almost every day a team of experts descend, getting Ben back to peak mental and physical fitness.
We spent years getting the body back so that he can weight bear through his legs more. And he's getting a really good hang of it. But every so often he twists, because it's easy for the big muscles to do that. The little muscles don't work as well.
It's been painstaking work, rebuilding the pathways between his mind and body.
He, 27, ran through a hell of intersurgeon machine on fire and rocket propelled grenade 3 times to save the injured comrade.
What did you think about that one? Was that better?
It was better.
Better.
His conservatory is now his gym, a place where he pushes himself to the max.
Let's go. Come on, get it. And again. Come on. 2. 3. Come on. This one, right on your chin. Come on, get it up here. Get it up.
For all those involved with his rehab, Ben is an inspiration.
Get your hip pushing through so you flatten your foot a little bit quicker. He's got the similar determination to do well that you see in elite athletes. Not your normal everyday runner like me, but elite athletes. They are determined, and Ben has the same sort of determination.
Good one. That was good. Okay, let's just go for this last paragraph.
I'm happy to hear.
In 30 years of working, I've never seen anybody as determined as Ben. And I've never seen anybody make the progress so many years after the accident as Ben's made.
Come on, keep that back straight. Come on, push! Push! One more.
I literally put him to hell. I used to have a sore throat every training session. Purely being ex-military myself, putting him back into that mentality. No retreat, no surrender mentality, you know what I mean? So we did literally push him to his limits. Every session was about pushing him to his limits.
And this constant pushing of Ben is why he's now able to deal with most of what the Yukon has thrown at him.
I kind of think that this is the kind of exercise that he would like to do if he hadn't been blown up. I think this is Ben. So the challenge of the mobility is just an added, it's like a bonus for him. It's something else added on to the excitement of what he's doing.
He's got no fear of failure. The biggest thing that holds every human being back, fear of failure. Knowing the guys he's going with personally, he's going to love every second of it. I just feel sorry for bears.
Ben's rehab hasn't just been a programme of blood, sweat and tears. He's benefited from the cutting edge of science too.
So how many times a week are you coming, Ben?
4 times a week.
4 times a week.
At the beginning of 2015, Ben was the first injured British soldier to receive hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Well, good luck in there. It's been nice knowing you.
Cheers. I was so about you.
He always has to have the last word, doesn't he?
He's been breathing pure oxygen in a pressurised chamber. The oxygen can help nutrients flow back into damaged cells. It's hoped it'll help Ben's memory, speech and balance. Not a minute is wasted. As the oxygen flows through his veins, Ben is on his tablet, playing brain training games in an attempt to improve his condition.
You see him day after day and know him better than anyone. Do you see subtle changes?
His talking is better, but I don't notice that quite as much as everyone else because I can understand Ben perfectly well because I live 24/7 with him. The big change is just after a couple of 6 days, I think it was, in the chamber, Ben's legs started flicking uncontrollably, and that was definitely nerves being chimed in by his brain for the very first time after the injury, which is, I mean, it was amazing when you're looking, it's nearly 9 years since his injury and he's still making massive gains. It's just started when we started doing the oxygen treatment, so it can really only be that.
Thank you very much. Ben, tell me, how did that feel?
Very good. It always, always.
You're not bored in there?
And well, it because I do Lumosity all the time on my iPod. It takes the time up.
Yeah, but your lungs are feeling good for having 100%.
Yeah, very good.
Fantastic, let's get you home.
Cheers.
Well done.
Back in the Yukon, we're all getting more than our fair share of fresh air. This is about as remote as it gets. As we continue north, the weather takes a turn for the worse. The sunshine's being replaced with drizzle that chills to the bone.
It's probably only a couple of degrees above freezing. It's been raining quite heavily this morning. Everyone's tired. It's starting to wear the group down. On top of that, we've got a really long day's paddling. We're just going to have to tough it out. That's the only thing we can do. I don't know how Ben's getting on, but everybody able-bodied is really struggling.
Water temperature just above freezing, air temperature around about freezing. Perfect combination for using up a lot of energy. So we need the breaks to make sure the guys get the calories in, so they get lots and lots of food in to be able to keep themselves going as much as they possibly can.
Me, this way.
Yeah.
The cold is no good for Ben's back, and the rain isn't lightening his mood.
How you feeling?
Okay, thank you.
You were cold this morning, are you warmer now?
I'm freezing, but I'm working hard, so I'll be warm.
Yeah, you feel a bit warmer now?
I love warmer.
That's good news, because you were very cold this morning.
Freezing.
Yeah?
But you were alone, everyone was.
Everyone was, yeah. And what about your back? How's your back doing?
Well, I doesn't matter. Don't talk about it. I want to talk about it. I want to rest. I want to friendly
The back injury has made this a tough expedition for Ben, but with more than 200 miles behind him, the end is almost in sight. As we camp for the last night, Ben knows this has been no cushy number. In fact, it's been the test that he and the Pilgrim Bandits always wanted.
I just do what I can. I don't know if it's been amazing or not.
Cast your mind back to 9 years ago. The medics said you were going home to die, but here you are.
I don't know what to say. What they know, basically. Nothing.
But what you've done is you've tried to kind of confound medical opinion. You've tried to prove them wrong for yourself.
I've tried to, I just did. I didn't try to, but if someone said to you, you'll never walk again or talk, would you just be like, I'll take it? Or you find like something not right to walk and talk again? So I was a little bit for me. The next challenge is just around the corner.
If you could turn the clock back to 5 minutes before you got hit by the IED, would you change events?
No. Not if it had been me, it could have been one of my friends. So it's a small price to pay, really.
That's quite something to say.
Well, it's how I feel though.
After all he's endured, Ben's attitude is both humbling and remarkable. But his Yukon adventure isn't over just yet.
The locals call that rock there 20 Mile Rock because it's 20 miles from Dawson City, our final destination. So it's the final push. We're very much on the homeward leg.
Hot showers and warm beds are not that far away.
Dawson City, Ben, can you see it? Last tiny push. Cold, tired, elated, and happy for Ben. And the boys. Everyone's done an amazing job, brilliant team. Can't wait for a cold beer now.
It's been an epic 250 miles. Ben's display of inner strength is living proof of the ability of the human spirit to triumph over an adversity few of us will ever know.
Just over 9 years ago, Ben Parkinson put his life on the line on the battlefields of Afghanistan. His injuries were so severe that medical opinion considered his life all but over. So the very fact he's here in northern Canada and he's kayaked just over 250 miles down the mighty Yukon River shows he has so much more to offer. Ben's story is one of grit and determination to succeed and defy the odds. So no wonder everyone's gathering around to mark the achievements of the wilderness warrior.
For all of these guys to be able to complete what they've managed to do to get to here, through all that training, all the background work they've had to do, time in a gym, getting themselves fit, amazing, genuine inspiration.
It's incredible, really. It's just completed 200 odd miles, you know, kayaking the Yukon River. Who dares wins, as we say.
Ben's obviously got the determination, the whole group's done amazing.
There's lots more goals he wants to achieve, and I'm sure he will. I hope I'm there for the trip with him.
Proud of him?
Brings tears to my eyes to think about it, so yeah, really proud.
He's got the will, and Pilgrim Bandits have got the way. It's as simple as that. And we don't know what we're doing next, but he'll achieve it. This is 250 miles almost, just totally off the radar even a year ago. So,
you're very emotional. Well done, mate.
I am immensely proud of all our kids. They've all done well in their lives. But Ben, being a soldier, there was always something special about what Ben did. We were incredibly proud of what he did, but nothing even compares to how proud we are of the way that he's coped with what's happened to him.
They said I would never walk, or talk, and I'll be talking now. When I want to walk, I can't walk yet, but I'm going to do. But let's say I could never walk, for sure. I would never, ever stop trying to. Even if I could never do it, I would always try, always.
I don't think there's anybody who's got any doubt whatsoever. Your talking will improve, you will walk.
Don't
Sky's the limit.